Hello, Tushar.
Hello.
Are you ready for the interview?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about your introduction.
Myself Tushar Dangaj, and I had done BTech in computer science, and while doing my BTech, I got to know about Salesforce. So that's why I started learning about it. I started understanding what exactly it is, and I found that there is a great opportunity in Salesforce. So I continued my learning in that, and finally, I had done like admin part, and then I started the development as well from the different YouTube videos and courses. And I had done my Apex and LWC as well in development. And then I got an internship. So that's what I have completed, like my
Okay.
3 months of internship.
Okay, Tushar. Great. So, what do you think? Which is better, admin or development part?
I feel admin is better and development is also better. Like they both have their own pros.
Tell me any one benefit of using development over lightning flows, let's say.
Yeah, okay. So basically, the benefit of using development over Salesforce flows is basically what I can say that in Salesforce flows, you can create a functionality using create, update, delete, or the things which are available, which are made available from Salesforce. But through development, you can do as much things as possible and in an optimized way.
Okay, so any benefit?
So the benefit is that only if in flows my two for loops are there. Like we have looping elements in flows, so I cannot optimize it. But in Apex part, I can optimize my two for loops, nested for loops into single for. So that is something which I have observed.
Okay, that's could be a good advantage of using Apex over lightning flows. So, do you think that we can call APIs from flows?
Yeah, the last time I had seen it was in beta. Maybe now it came and we can call, and when it was in beta, that time also we can call API from flows.
Okay, so are you aware about third-party APIs and how do we call it in Apex, right?
Yeah, I am aware about it.
Which all API have you ever worked on?
Like I have worked on specifically more on inbound API and less on outbound API.
So any specific API which is inbound according to you, which you have worked on?
Like I had worked on creating some functionalities like APIs for the external system like QuickBook, which the external system can call and access the Salesforce data.
Okay, so you created a REST resource, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So have you worked on outbound APIs?
Yeah, I had worked on outbound APIs as well. Like I had done a Stripe integration and called a Stripe API for payment links and all.
Okay. So what type of authentication does Stripe use?
Like it's OAuth 2.0. No. It's a basic OAuth basically, and it is auth type as well. It's secure, but we have a key just to use for integration.
Okay, so what's the difference between an OAuth and OAuth 2?
Like the difference is in the process of generating the access token. So in auth, we use username and password in order to generate the authorization code and access token. But when we use OAuth 2.0, then the same process happens with the help of secret keys and client secret and client ID. So that is something which is used there. So more secure one is OAuth 2.0 because we are not revealing our passwords and all, and it uses like a different pathway to generate an access token in a single go.
Okay, so as you already mentioned right now that we use client secret and client ID for generating an access token in OAuth 2. Don't we use these two things in OAuth as well?
Oh, yeah, but the difference I have mentioned is that username and password are not used in OAuth 2.0.
So what is used in the...
Only client ID, client secret, and the URLs like auth URL, access token URL, we need to mention while hitting the API. for access token, and also redirect URL so that we'll get the authorization code, and after getting the authorization code, automatically the API for access token get hit. So that's why I said like it generates the access token in a single go.
Okay, in what, right?
In OAuth 2.0.
Okay. So tell me, since you have worked on REST resource, right?
Yes.
You integrated QuickBooks with the Salesforce.
Yes, I have integrated QuickBook with Salesforce.
Okay, so how did you manage to create a REST resource and communicate between these two different platforms? What was the complete process or the pattern you followed?
Like the requirement which I got in the project was that to just build this functionality, from the UI side only, because the client is not obviously like the client is not that the users who are going to use the org are not that technical sufficient. So they want a button in the UI itself, a sync button to sync the data of the accounts in Salesforce with the customers in the QuickBook. Something like this kind of sync are there in the objects of QuickBook CRM and the Salesforce CRM. So that is something which was needed, and for that, for the access token part, I have created one Visualforce page which was helping to generate the access token, and there was a button on the UI itself, sync button, to sync the data. So that's something which I had done. All part.
Did you map the client? Did you create a connected app for these things?
Yes, because what was happening was like QuickBook is also calling Salesforce API at some point of time. So that's why I was required to like create a connected app.
Okay. So I have one question in here. Are the Apex classes which you have created, which is a REST resource class, is it available publicly?
No, not by default, but if I want to make it publicly available, then for that I had I had done something like given the access to the guest user, right? Something like that I have done, and over the profile itself of the guest user, because there is a need of site as well, public site in this kind of integration. I had made the Apex class publicly available. Then only the webhook of QuickBook A was able to call the sales.
Okay, great. Do you know about mixed TML exception?
Yeah, I had faced, but one thing I have observed, which I can mention here, I want to mention here that mixed DML exceptions were coming when I was doing setup and non-setup objects together, applying DML on both of them. But nowadays I am observing that it's not coming. But this is something which I observed.
Okay, so which two objects you were trying and it showed the error?
One was user object, and the another one was as what I remember, product object.
Okay.
Product or opportunity, I'm not sure.
Okay. So do you know about 101, error 101?
Yes, I am aware about it.
Can you tell me?
101 means there is a governor limit for SOQL query, and that is you can only execute 100 times in a single transaction, SOQL query. So that is the governor limit we have, and if a single 101 happen, it becomes above 100, the limit exceeds basically, and the error occurs.
What about 201?
201 is simply this is also occur when I think when we use batch and all, the governor limit for SOQL doubles to 200. I'm not very sure about it. So at that time 201 error occurs.
Tell me, what is the governor limit of executing a class, and what's the maximum time it will be staying in that execution phase?
So the execution time limit, CPU timeout we can call it, that is 10 seconds.
And what about asynchronous?
For asynchronous it's 60 seconds.
Okay. And what about future method then?
That is also asynchronous, so it will be 60 seconds only.
Okay. So let's take a scenario here and answer me what will happen and how many time it will get executed. Let's discuss the scenario first. Considering we have a field or opportunity object, okay, it's getting updated from the workflow. We have a workflow which is already updating it. Now, what is happening? We have another trigger as well on the same object. It is calling and future method, which is also updating the same field. So how many times this particular future method will get executed?
How many times the future method will so the future method is getting executed from the trigger, right?
Yes.
Okay. And when you are asking it's going to execute?
Whenever we are creating any record in opportunity, it's basically updating the fields from the workflow, and we are doing the same same updation of the field, same
So
field.
at the time, both of them, like workflow rule and trigger, are active.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, as per, like, if I'll connect this whole scenario with the technical concepts like order of execution, there in order of execution, it is mentioned that record gets saved, and then after trigger executes, like this is how the process happens. And after that, after all those things, workflow rule executes. In workflow rule, it's mentioned that flow and custom validations and all does not executes. So that is something which I know, like they doesn't execute on the field update of the workflow. So there is a field update on workflow.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So first thing to mention that I am not very sure that workflow will gonna trigger the trigger or not. But trigger will automatically get triggered in as per the order of execution before the execution of workflow rule. So if the trigger is getting executed at that time, future method will execute for the first time. That will happen. And after that, if I'll assume that workflow will gonna trigger the trigger which is on opportunity, then definitely again the future method will execute.
Okay, which you're not sure about. Okay, not a problem. Okay, I will look into it.
Yeah, definitely I'll be checking this.
Okay, that's great. Now tell me, are you aware about SOQL?
Yes.
Okay, so I would request you to write a SOQL so that I can fetch only those accounts where we have more than 2 contacts.
Okay. So I if I'll repeat the question, can you confirm please? Like, is it like you are asking like to fetch the accounts which are having 2 contacts?
At least 2 contacts.
At least 2 contacts. So let me think about it. So for that, I think for at least 2 contacts. Okay, let me write down. So there will be like, first of all, select, and then ID from I feel from account. So that's going to get the account records. But if you need accounts with at least 2 contacts, so that is not possible using normal query, I feel. So I need to write this select account ID, from contact, and having count of ID equals 2, greater than 2. And here I need to put group by as well, because if I'll not group it by, so then it's not going to work. So group by account ID I am doing, right? So this is something which I can think of, like select account ID from contact, group by account ID, having count ID greater than 2.
Okay, Tushar, just one question here. When we are using count ID, we are not querying that field. Would it show any error?
Yeah, like
or it's correct? It needs to be ID or it needs to be account ID?
No, it should be ID only, because obviously we want account, we want the count of contact records, and this is the query on context, so that's why count of ID will be better. But your question is valid, and I can also think of like I need to use ID, but I am not very sure about it. I need to execute it over the query editor, but this is something which I can think of. Right?
Okay, Tushar. So tell me, do you know what exception would throw if I just am providing a code? Okay, tell me what happens, what error it will show if we have written something like this: account A equals to, then we have written a query which says that select name from account, semicolon, brackets, square brackets, and then we have a semicolon. What will happen? What error it will show?
Like as per I can see, like you haven't mentioned limit here in the query. So I think like if there is no limit, there is a possibility that more than 1 records can be fetched, and we have only one variable here. There is no list, right? There is no list.
There is no list. There is account A.
Okay, so it could throw an error like list has more than 1 record to assign. So it could throw something like this error, as per what I can recall.
Which exception?
Maybe like S object, or maybe list exception. List will not come because it comes when do not have any memory and we are assigning something. So I'm not sure about it. Maybe S object maybe, or maybe query exception could also be the option.
Okay, since you say that it would be a query exception, please check it, since you are saying it would be a query exception or could be a list exception as well.
Definitely, I'll be checking that.
Okay. Have you ever written a test class?
Test class, yes, I have written test classes.
Why do we need test classes?
Because when we are doing deployment and we are running at the time, the test class also runs, and there is a need to validate the primary need is that the code shall be validated, code should work properly on single, bulk, and different.
What's the least coverage we require?
75% of the code coverage is the least code coverage which is required.
Okay. So what if, since you have told initially that you have worked on QuickBooks as a REST resource part, do you know how do we create a REST resource? How do we create a test class for that particular REST resource?
Yes, we can. It's not like we have to call the API and all. We can simply call the method of the REST resource, and we can validate.
Which method?
Like whatever the method in the REST resource class we have defined, we can call them directly from the test class method.
Also, how would you pass the value to the REST context?
We can pass it just before calling the method. We can set all the values like REST request, and we can set all the parameters and all the values. There are methods, predefined methods for the same class.
Okay. What about mock callout?
Yeah, mock callout is used when we are writing app test class for API callout, which we do from our Apex class to any other third-party API. We are calling that. If we want to test it, we need mock callout.
Okay, tell me about, can we call a future method from batch execute method?
From batch execute method, future method, not sure about it.
Okay, can we call a batch from a batch?
No, that's not possible. Like calling a batch from a batch.
Not even from the execute?
No.
Or not even from finish?
From finish, yeah. From finish it is possible. From execute it is not.
Or from start?
From start, first of all, there is no sense of calling from the start, but I never tried it.
Okay, not a problem. Can we call a future from a future?
No.
Are you sure?
I'm sure because I am getting a logical reason that if something is already running asynchronously, then why to again run?
Okay, great. So, yep, we cannot call future from a future. It's correct. What's the return type of future method?
Future method do not have any return type. Yeah, it's not having any return.
Why do you think it doesn't have a return type?
The reason is future methods runs asynchronously. It takes time to execute, so the code which is calling the future method cannot wait up till that much time. So that's why there is no return type.
Okay. Consider that we have a trigger that is on before and delete. Okay. And then we are using a trigger.new and we are updating a value on before and delete. What will happen? Will it work?
Can you repeat? I didn't get this.
So we have a trigger on account object which is working on before and delete. We are using a trigger.new which is getting the value and which is updating a field basically.
Before and delete is not an event I as what I can think of.
Okay, so what all events do we have?
We have 7 events, like before update, before delete, and before insert, and the 4 for all the 4 operations, like insert, update, after 1 for all the 4 operations.
Total 7, right?
Total 7, yeah.
So for undelete?
For undelete, after undelete is there.
Okay, how many context variable do we have?
We have many context variable. If you are asking for the count, there are 13, but I'm not sure. I'll be able to tell all the names. Yeah.
Tell me some uncommon context variable names.
Yeah, uncommon, which I haven't much used. I have used, but very less. That is trigger.is executable, or trigger.size as well.
Okay. Anything other?
There are many other which are common, like trigger.is before, trigger is after, trigger.is update, and trigger.is insert, trigger.is undelete, trigger.is delete. So these are the.
Okay. What's the difference between a trigger.new and trigger.new map?
Trigger.new is simply new is a variable in trigger class which represents a list of the records, S object list of S object. And trigger.new map is simply a map of ID and S object.
Okay, Tushar. Since you told that you are aware about LWC, right?
Yes.
What about Aura and VF page?
Like I had done little work on Aura and Visual Force. I have more hands-on on LWC.
What's the difference between Aura and LWC?
Like LWC is fast. As per what I can recall and my observation as well, like it's too fast to load the page which is built on LWC components. But if I am talking about Aura component, it is slow. And there are other differences. If you allow, I can tell you.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so there are like differences like LWC is having only HTML, CSS and JavaScript and SVG and one more file. But Aura is having a complex structure and it's difficult to learn as well, difficult to adapt as well. So that's what I found. And many things we can do using LWC, which Aura can also do. So both are like now there is no that much need of Aura as compared to LWC. And if you go to Salesforce official website as well, Salesforce also recommend to use LWC instead of Aura.
Okay. What about calling an Apex method from Lightning component, web component?
It requires two approaches. Any one of these two approaches, basically imperative one or wire approach to call an Apex method. Also, there is third thing as well, like Lightning data service, which are having already defined methods which we can call.
No, considering we are using imperative and we need to call an Apex, what all thing we need to consider?
While calling using an imperative method, while calling an Apex method, first of all, the common thing is we need to import that Apex method. That Apex method needs to be deployed as well. If it is in your local system, you cannot import and call it. That is the one thing. And second thing is when you are calling the method, Apex method, you need to pass the parameter name exactly same as the Apex methods.
Anything else?
Other than this, we need to use, it's a best practice while calling an imperative method. It's like an API call, kind of API call, because we are calling backend from the front end. So we have to use try catch, and we can use two approaches to call, like the dot-then approach, or we can use async await approach.
Okay, anything need to be considered on the side of Apex class? These all things, the importing and all these things were part of LWC.
Yeah, I'm just able to recall that Apex method needs to be Aura enabled. That is something which is needed, like on annotation on Apex method, which is @Aura enabled.
On the method or on the class?
On the method, it is needed.
Okay, so how many method can we create with Aura enabled in a class?
We can create as many as we want, because I have created it and I never found any limit. But definitely I need to check if there is a limit.
Okay. What's the difference between a property in LWC and a variable in LWC?
Property in LWC represents LWC class component class property, and the variable is simply something which is declared or initialized at the top of the class, outside the class.
Okay, let's take a scenario where we have three wire method A, wire method B, wire method C. First, tell me in which order they will get executed. And second, if we want to make them execute in a sequential way, which is B, A and C, how do we do that?
Okay, this can be, first of all, answering to the first part of your question, that in which order they'll get called in any random order. There is no fixed order of wire to get called. And the answer to the second question, what I can think of, if I need to call something in a particular sequence, then I'll always prefer to use, I cannot control their calling.
Okay, let me update the question. So what if we have a scenario where we have wire A, wire B and wire C method, but wire C method should only get executed once wire A and wire B method is getting executed.
Okay, again, like answering to the question, can you repeat? Like you are saying, wire A should get called.
Wire C method should only get called when wire A and wire B is already get called.
Okay, got it. So yeah, in this case, I'll be using Boolean variable, and I'll be like I'll be using in the third wire. I'll be passing a parameter. So even though wire, like the third wire will get called, any like initial at the very starting, what I can think of, I cannot stop a wire method to be called. But if you want it to be handled, like wire 3 to be called just after the calling is done from wire 1 and wire 2, then for that I simply have to change a property value which I can pass in an Apex method which I am calling from wire 3 C wire.
You can pass that property value to the wire C and check it, but can you stop the initial execution of wire C method?
No, it's not like possible.
Okay, so what would you try to do?
For workaround, I'll be using if condition in the response. Like while handling the response of wire C, I'll be using a if condition.
Okay, what is the invocable method?
Invocable methods are like as per what I remember, like the methods which can be called from process builder, and yeah, so something this is something which I am able to recall.
Okay, can we use invocable methods in the Apex invocable methods inside LWC?
Apex invocable, a method needs to be having one annotation which is @aura enabled. But for making a method invocable, there also we have to use another annotation which is @invocable method. So I don't think that it allows in Apex to put two annotation on a single method. So I think it's not.
So where can we use this invocable methods?
From the process builder or the flows. I am not sure about flows because I haven't done that. But
okay, thank you, Tushar.
Okay, thanks.